So what we are going to do in this segment is to simplify the matter for you. I'm sure some of you may have heard President Mahama said something, Dr. Bawumia said something about the economy, and somebody comparing COVID-19 and doomsaw and all of that. Maybe you've heard it in dispatches. You've not had time to look at it. That's why Good Evening Ghana is here. What we're going to do for you in the next few minutes is to show you exactly what President Mahama said and what Dr. Bawumia said. And then you can make your own deductions out of that. The beautiful thing tonight is that we're going to open the phone lines. Those of you who have the time and the interest to call to tell us what you think. So we begin with President Mahama. In one of his broadcasts, he made the assertion that Ghana's economy is not doing well. He actually also alleged that the figures of the economy, as put out by the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, were not great figures. He said that those figures are outcomes of creative accounting. Fundamentally, he's trying to say that the figures that the government put out are not correct. He says that the economy is in a more wobbling situation than the MPP government would like us to believe. President Mahama said also that he has always been making the point that the economic figures that are being shown to us are not correct. He says, as a result of this wobbling economy that Akufo-Addo is running, when COVID-19 came in, within 3 weeks of COVID-19, the entire economy is crumbling. He challenges the government that if the economy was as robust as the government would like us to believe, it could have survived at least 3 weeks of COVID-19. This is what President Mahama said.
We said our economy was so robust and it was the fastest growing in Africa and all that. Ask yourself, how many countries have run quickly to the IMF to go and look for relief? You know, we have next door our neighbors, Togo, Cote d'Ivoire, Rwanda, and so many other African countries. If we had one of the best economies, why within only 3 weeks, you know, our economy was almost on the verge of going on its knees, and we had eaten kenke and celebrated leaving the IMF. We quickly ran back to the IMF. You know, I don't know whether we'll eat kenke and celebrate going back to the IMF to go and seek relief. It is the truth. Even before COVID, there were problems with this economy, and I kept pointing out that the Minister of Finance was engaged in creative accounting. He had put a lot of debts and arrears under the line and was not adding them to the budget accounting. I had pointed this out several times. And if you go, if your mother dies and you pretend that she's not dead, you know, when the body starts smelling, everybody will find it. And so when COVID came, you know, the speed with which our economy already, you know, was in crisis was alarming. Indeed, I said the other time that one top government official said that with the kind of foreign reserves we have, our economy can survive for 3 months without any, you know, external intervention if we are faced with a disaster. We were faced with a disaster for only 3 weeks, and already we were seeking external intervention to keep the economy afloat.
So when he got the opportunity, Vice President Alhaji Mahama Bawumia responded. Dr. Bawumia said many things, and we'll be dealing with that. He talked about the comparison, and people are accusing him of wrongly comparing. We'll talk about that in a minute. But one fundamental thing he said, which is very important, is that he made the point, and he made it forcefully, that since the year 2000 up to the year 2020, for the last 20 years, Ghana's worst economic period, the period that Ghana has had its worst turnout as far as our economy was concerned, is the 4 years that President Mahama led, from 2013 up until 2017. Dr. Bawumia does not provide any real data to support this, but he makes the assertion very, very forcefully that President Mahama presided over the worst economic turnout in all the figures, all the data, all the indices, and in all the analysis. President Mahama's tenure as president showed Ghana's economy at its worst performing ebb, at its lowest ebb in economic performance. That's what Dr. Bawumia said. Hear him.
If you look at the data in terms of macroeconomic performance in any economy, since the year 2000, the tenure of the former president was the worst in terms of outcomes in macroeconomic performance. That's the data. It's not me saying it. The banking system was weak. Unemployment was rising. Our national health insurance was back to cash and carry. We had 4 years of doomsaw with its devastating impact on our economy. And not even withstanding that, electricity prices were being increased by an average of 45% between 2010 and 2015. Our public finances were in a precarious state, of course, that resulted in us having to go to the IMF for a bailout and policy credibility. Taxes were being increased. There was a freeze on public sector recruitment, cuts in allowances for teachers and lecturers, cuts in allowances for lecturers, abolition of teacher training allowances, abolition of nursing training allowances, and even for teachers who had worked for 2-3 years, they were being paid just 3 months of allowances. I mean, common chalk was even a problem in our schools. And this is really the history that the NDC would want us to forget, and which we should not forget.
So you've heard both of them. Let's do further analysis. Dr. Bawumia had more to say. Now, Dr. Bawumia has been criticized for comparing apples to oranges because he talks about 2 crisis situations. He identifies 2 crisis situations that had ramifications for the economy. So he identifies COVID-19, which is what we are still facing, and he identifies Doomso as 2 crises, and he sort of evaluates how 2 leaders, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and President Mahama, respond to both. So that's the point he made. Now, he's being criticized that if you are talking about a crisis situation of a pandemic, then you would have to use another pandemic, and you have one, Ebola, to do the comparative analysis. You don't do a pandemic and energy situation. That's what people are criticizing Dr. Bawumia for. That is his criticism that his comparative analysis was wrong. There are those who are also supporting Dr. Bawumia, and they make the point in a mathematical equation. They talk about the 2 aspects of an equation, the constant and the variable. So the constant in the equation is Ghana's economy. So Ghana's economy is the constant in the equation. The variable they talk about is the economic crisis. An economic crisis might be in and of themselves economic in nature, but it could also be something else. They could be floods, they could be pandemic, but so long as they have ramifications on the economy, they can be classified as an economic crisis. So the variables here, the 2 variations of economic crisis that Dr. Bawumia identifies are 1, an energy crisis situation, which is of an energy nature, but it has tremendous ramifications for the economy. And then you have COVID-19, which is of a health nature, but it has tremendous ramifications for the economy. Dr. Bawumia identifies 2 variations of economic crisis. One is as a result of an energy situation, and one originates from a health situation. Neither the energy or the health originates in and of themselves in economics, but they have ramifications for the economy. So he identifies both as economic crisis, and he talks about how President Mahama responded to the Doomso and how Nana Akufo-Addo is responding to COVID, both as economic crisis. He actually also says that the Doomso was internally generated, that it was created by the Mahama administration themselves, and that their response to it, if you check their response to it, and if you check Akufo-Addo's response to the COVID-19, which is externally created, you will see that one leader is better than the other. Let's hear him and we'll come back. Hear Dr. Bawumia on this analysis.
The robustness of an economy, you test it in a time of crisis. Thankfully, we have had 2 crises. Under the NDC, there was an internally generated crisis, which was Doomso. Under the presidency of Nana Akufo-Addo, there has been an externally generated crisis, which has been the global coronavirus pandemic. I just want you to ask yourselves, how have these 2 crises been managed? The Doomso crisis, which crippled this economy for 4 years. What were the mitigating measures offered to businesses and individuals during Doomso? This was an internally generated crisis. We saw that even during Doomso, electricity prices were being increased. Fuel prices were being increased. Teacher training allowances were being cancelled. Nursing training allowances were being... All of that was happening during that particular crisis. You look at the coronavirus crisis and you look at the difference in terms of what has happened. The president has reduced electricity prices, made it free for lifeline consumers, has given free water for all Ghanaians for 3 months, has made sure that there is a stimulus package of 600 million Ghana cedis for businesses. And we have seen domestic production of PPEs, personal protective equipment, for our health workers locally. So the difference couldn't be more stark between the leadership under a crisis under the DUMSO and that under the coronavirus epidemic. So I ask a simple question. Who will you trust in a time of crisis? My humble advice to former President Mahama is to take a look at the data. This is not Green Book data. This is just the data, right? Take a look at the data before you speak. Otherwise, you will end up embarrassing yourself.
So now you've heard Dr. Bawumia on the analysis. He's complaining about President Mahama not showing enough fidelity to the data and all of that. I mean, that we can deal with later. But let's come and look at it from our studio perspective. Later on, I'll open the phone lines for you to tell me what you think yourself. You may agree with us or disagree with us. Now, in this our studio analysis, we're going to make the MPP case, and then we'll make the NDC case. We're going to look at it from the MPP spectacles, make their case, and look at it from the NDC spectacles and make their case. So there are two issues. We think that Dr. Bawumia's comparison is correct, that they are both economic crises. So long as he said he was comparing economic crisis, yes, it's correct. You can compare floods to hunger, famine. You can compare war in Kokumba and Anumba or war in Bruno-Ahafo region as a crisis that affects economic ramifications. So if there's war in Bruno-Ahafo region, all the goods that come from Bruno-Ahafo region into the south may not come. There'll be shortage of food. That's an economic crisis. So economic crisis can have various variations. As we said, they may not in and of themselves be economic, but they may originate from other sectors of the economy. So we think that Dr. Bawumia's comparison is not apples and oranges. It's economic crisis and the variations of it in an equation where Ghana's economy is the constant. You can do that. So cool, that's fine. I mean, you can disagree with us when we open the phone lines, but that's our view. Now, the MPP are going to say that in Ghana, since the time of Kwesi Botwe, I mean, we've had economic ministers all the time. We are still a developing country. So we've had Kwesi Botwe in the past. We had Richard Kwame Pepra. We had Yao Safo Mafo. We had Kojo Banredu, may he rest in peace. We had Dr. Kwabena Dufour. We had the Honorable Seth Tekpe. And we had Ken Oforiatta. So we've had finance ministers all the time. It would appear that our economy doesn't significantly change over periods. Yes, politically, politicians will tell us that I'm done better than him, and the indices are better, my debt to GDP ratio is better, my economic growth is better. Yes, we've had some good turnout. Some people like Dr. Dufour might say that I presided over the single-digit inflation for the longest time in the history of the country. Yeah, that's all a plus. Yes, fair enough. But by and large, the economy is quite similar to one's economy is very similar to the other. So MPP are going to say that when they inherited the economy, they decided to make payments. Nurses and teacher training allowances were restored. That is taking money from the kitty, from the exchequer, to pay nurses and teachers, trainees. They will say that they have spent money to pay free SHS, that is looking after secondary school students all over the country, starting from year 1, year 2, and they are now in year 3. So this is investment that they had made out of the exchequer, which is what NDC didn't make. Now, they will say that they have been able to make all of these investments, and yet the economy is running. The economy is not on its toes. And in spite of making all these investments, they were able to exit the IMF in normal times. They were able to exit the IMF, the point that President Mahama makes about eating kinky. That's what the MPP are going to say, that they have come and inherited a bad economy, and everyone says they inherited a bad economy. We know that already. So we don't know whether we should believe it or not. But they've inherited some economy. Out of that, they have made payments and investments into youthful people in Ghana that the previous government didn't make. Because people who go to nurses training are youth, are young people. People who go to teacher training are young people. People who go to secondary school are young people. So if you take the taxpayers' money out of the exchequer and you invest in these people, you are investing in the future of Ghana. They will say that they were able to do all of that, and yes, they were able to exit the IMF. They will say that they were able to do all of that, and they were able to commission an ambulance for each constituency, something that had been dragging from Kojo Banredu's time. It was never done. Every government, there's a contract, this happens. In the Mahama administration, they tried to do it. They were not able to achieve it. But MPP are going to say that we have come and achieved this. That's, again, investing in people. I mean, they can talk also about the blood, the drones and blood and all of that. But The ambulances is clear. The 275 constituencies in Ghana today, each has an ambulance. If you make that indices around Africa, you see that Ghana is really high in terms of the proximity of the health service. So MPP are going to say that. Okay, and they're going to say that in spite of doing all that, we've had an economy running. You didn't pay those monies. We did. NDC are going to say that they invested in infrastructure. So they're going to talk about, even if they didn't pay nurses and teacher training allowances, even if they stopped it, and President Mahama said he was going to stop it, even if they stopped nurses and teacher training allowances, even if they didn't pay free SHS, even if they didn't get the ambulances, even if they are not distributing drones, they were able to invest in health infrastructure, and they will say some of the health infrastructure, we are benefiting from it now under COVID-19. So they're going to talk about Ridge Hospital, and they're going to talk about other hospitals, the Bank of Ghana Hospital, and they're going to talk about the airports, the Kotoka International Airport, which is beautiful. The concern there, the problem there is that the allegations against the NDC, even during the campaign time, and these things were used for the 2016 campaign, obviously Ghanaians didn't buy it. Maybe they didn't buy it because the allegation was that the cost of these hospitals and these airports were so astronomical that it smacked of corruption. That's the allegation that the MPP made against them. And those allegations are still hanging that, yes, you did some hospitals, which is good. Yes, you did the airport, the Kumasi airport in particular. Remember Dr. Bawumia was asking whether the tarmac is paved with gold because of the amount of taxpayers' money that was committed to these projects, which was thought to be far, far, far in excess of what it should be, to the extent that the allegation was that the taxpayer has been robbed. Even though the taxpayer has been given the Ridge Hospital, the taxpayer allegedly has been robbed. That's what the MPP said. And we don't know. So that's the matter to be dealt when you talk about NDC and its infrastructure. Let's come to COVID-19 itself and see what we are seeing. So under COVID-19, quite clearly, the government was suffering. And so they went to IMF to borrow money, as they say, without conditionalities, but they borrowed money. But if you look at COVID-19 and you look at the things that the president has given away, most likely out of the money that was borrowed, you will see that once again, the investment in people is top of the agenda. Have a look at this speech, and just to remind you of the things the president gave away: water, electricity, health service workers. This is what the president said.
I indicated in my last speech, the government will absorb water bills for all Ghanaians for the next 3 months, i.e. April, May, and June. Furthermore, water tankers, publicly and privately owned, are being mobilized to ensure the supply of water to vulnerable communities. We have decided on further measures of mitigation for all Ghanaians for the next 3 months, i.e. April, May, and June. Government will fully absorb electricity bills for the poorest of the poor, i.e. for all lifeline consumers. That is free electricity for persons who consume 0 to 50 kilowatt hours a month for this period. In addition, for all other consumers, residential and commercial, government will absorb 50% of your electricity bill for this period, using your March 2020 bill as your benchmark. For example, if your electricity bill was 100 cedis, you will pay only 50 cedis, with government absorbing the remaining 50 cedis. This is being done to support industry, enterprises, and the service sector in these difficult times, and to provide some relief to households for lost income. Nevertheless, I urge all Ghanaians to exercise discipline in their use of water and electricity. An insurance package with an insurance sum of 350,000 cedis for each health personnel and allied professional at the forefront of the fight has been put in place, with a daily allowance of 150 cedis being paid to contact tracers. Government has also decided that all health workers will not pay taxes on their emoluments for the next 3 months, i.e. April, May, and June. Furthermore, all frontline health workers will receive an additional allowance of 50% of their basic salary per month, i.e. for March, April, May, and June. The March allowance will be paid alongside that of April.
So you can make the comparison now between what President Mahama said and what Dr. Bawumia said. We have told you the NDC's case, what the NDC would say, and we have told you what the MPP will say. There's one matter that I need to show you a video on, because the full video is showing soon after this part of the program, and it's about the Education Minister. This is what he had to say in comparing NDC's free SHS and MPP's free SHS. This is what he said.
And you could not even pay what 30 cedis a day. You're coming to tell me who has been paying 1,000 cedis paying regularly without a single arrear contribution.
But you're not accounting to the NDC, you're accounting to the Ghanaian people.
I'm counting to the Ghanaian people and letting them see the stark contrast. Let them see the stark contrast.
So, you have seen it all. It's now time to open the phone line so that you can bombard us with your views of the matter. You can also be critical of what we have said. There's no problem about that. That's a democracy. We say something and you can say something. This program, Good Evening Ghana, belongs to all of us. I just lead it, if you don't mind. But it belongs to all of us. So we're going to open the phone line so that you can say what you want to say. And then we can sort of get we can extract some data from what our viewers are talking about in this Dr. Bawumia versus President Mahama talk about the economy. First, though, as it's a Tuesday, let's take a J.J. Rawlings interlude. We'll be right back.
Sometimes these politicians can come and steal from you. They will do you in, but at the end of the day, they'll come and sit with you and drink small pito or come and eat small kenke with you. The fact that he's big man, he's doing this with you, you seem to overlook some of his faults because he's not treating you with contempt. Because he is not treating you with contempt. Sometimes these politicians can come and steal from you. They will do you in, but at the end of the day, they'll come and sit with you and drink small pito or come and eat small kenke with you. The fact that he's big man, he's doing this with you, you seem to overlook some of his faults because he's not treating you with contempt. Because he is not treating you with contempt.